Sam Edmund sitting in for Kane Corns. Gerard Healy is here, the Hawthorn icon Luke Hodge as well. And Kane Corns had a lot of homework on his plate today, locked behind closed doors at AFL House to deliver the squad we've just seen.
You're surprised Taranto's not in?
And Hodgie, no Tim Taranto in the squad.
No.
Patrick Cripps is in.
Kane didn't want the night on.
no Max scored. Luke Jackson's in. Luke Ryan, Mason Redmond are in as well. There's plenty of
Patrick Cripps is controversial.
Ins and outs to be dissected. Hodgie, what'd you make of the squad?
I've only run my eyes over it just at the moment. There's a couple little surprises. The Tim Taranto one, we've known that Kane's had a bee in his bonnet the whole season about it, but halfway through the year, I think Kane said that he wanted to see him kick more goals. He ended up kicking 19 goals for the year, so he put himself up to almost one a game. He kicked goals in 12 different games, had 140-odd clearances, averaged 29 touches a game. I thought it was a pretty consistent year. I know Kane kept banging on about his disposal, but he did so much well in a team that did struggle.
And Patrick Cripps, so 662 touches for Tim Taranto, 19 goals. Paddy Cripps, and it's not all about the raw numbers, 535 touches, 6 goals, 13.
Who'd be in front of Richmond's best and fairest, Tiger fans? Would it be Taranto or Dusty? Because if Dusty doesn't get in the team, according to your coach, it's absurd.
All right.
I would have thought that Taranto probably has got him covered for the BNF, but Tiger fans will know.
Well, let's put it out there on the hardcourt, Hodgie. 1300 736 736.
I reckon that's a fair point because Taranto got off to he had a really consistent year where
Lining,
Dusty, I think, Dusty was finding his feet early, playing permanent forward with Rewald and the likes.
Yep.
I think his second half of the year, Dusty was really, really consistent and had a strong back end. But I think Taranto for the whole season, that's what BNF comes down to. If you miss a game here or there, that's where it hurts you. And Taranto's played most of them and was very consistent.
And Gerard, I reckon you watch as many Docker games as anyone.
Yep.
So Luke Jackson, I guess the story of his season. But how's the turnaround? He was smashed.
No
at
action,
the
Jackson.
back page of the West Australian, all over the press over there, and he's in the All Australian squad of 44.
I reckon he'd be in their top 3, maybe in the best and fairest. I think the who's going to win it? The midfielder whose name has escaped me all of a sudden.
Sarong.
Yep.
I got that wrong. He'll win it by a clear margin. I reckon Jackson's probably second.
And that's probably I probably haven't seen as many Freo games as what you have, but that may have jumped out at me as a little bit of surprise. The fact that the first half of the year we were saying that wasn't really the right trade. He hardly hit the scoreboard. He averaged under a goal a game, and he played forward a lot. And we're looking through here, he only had 20 hitouts. If he was going to be the makeshift ruckman for the second part of the year, he only had 20 hitouts 8 times for the season. So you sort of look through that compared to look at the other ruckman. That's the one did jump out at me, but you did watch more games.
I've double-checked it with Dr. Hoyne as well, and his numbers for when he's been in the ruck have been extraordinary. It's just
is he in there as a ruckman or a forward? Because the first half of the year he played as a forward until Darcy got injured.
Yeah, I understand. That's why we need Kane here tomorrow night. He's got about a dozen questions.
But I can't believe he didn't rock up. We had.
I mean, it just shows he's softening a little bit.
For such a gritty person who doesn't take a backward step, I reckon it was a pretty weak thing for him not to rock up tonight. And what was his excuse? He needed to get home and see his family because he was locked away all day?
He's beyond
not up for it.
He must be saving it tonight for Archie.
Fatigue, I think it's set in. Hey, you can have your say on the All-Australian squad of 44. 1300 736 736, of course, is the number. The Harcourt's open line number, 0433 98 11 16, the temper text. Mixing Clyde North, he wanted to take up your question, Gerard, around Tim Taranto potentially leading, most likely leading, you'd think, Richmond's best and fairest. Mick, welcome.
There you go, guys. What an absolute joke. Geez, Corns is pretty bitter bloke. For the same bloke who put in the paper that he wanted him at Port Adelaide the year before the trade, and then Pickety goes to Richmond because he's got such a hatred for us. And the guy would be leading Richmond's best and fairest by about 4 games. Easy. Absolute easy. Dusty didn't start firing till about round 5.
Well, we'll wait and see on best and fairest night. I mean, Kane, I've got to say, has been pretty supportive of Taranto since the midway through the season. So
he's one of how many
only
around?
One of about 10 votes.
He's one of 10 around the mahogany table.
That's the thing is, as much as we're teasing Kane and getting stuck into him, he has only got a voice with a lot of other influential people there. So I don't think everyone should be hanging Kane out for if their players
don't
didn't
miss
get
being
selected.
All-Australian select. It's good.
Was news from the MRO, Hodgie, that Jacob Weitering had been cleared by Michael Christian. So a $3,000 fine. It was deemed to be careless, not intentional, which meant that he was clear and will be clear to play in the elimination final. Was the right call made here, do you think?
I believe so. I think I look back at I was probably the same as a majority of other people, when you first looked at it and it was slowed down and the first few bits of vision that I saw, I thought, oh, he's in a bit of trouble there. But when you're back and looked at it in real time, he's gone to try and pull Toby away from his teammate. His hand slipped up to his eye for a split second and he automatically realised that it was where it should have been. And I think for me, it was either going to be let him go as a genuine mistake or a fine, and they've given him the fine. There's no way a player should miss for that when it was totally accidental.
Yeah, I think when we saw the blood coming out of Toby Green's right eye, we all thought, or above his right eye, we thought, gee, this could be trouble for Jacob Weitering, who's clearly the other side of the face. And I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Gerard. Fleeting enough for it to be a careless incident?
Yeah, I think it needed to be addressed. I think the fine is the right the right solution here. I don't think it was suspendable, but certainly needed to be addressed because ultimately it was his choice to put his hand on his face.
Yeah, and for people to sort of say, oh, if it had been Toby, I'd disagree with that. That was when Toby got done, because I was playing in the game, and I said to Toby, mate, that's silly, you got warned the week before. This one was a genuine accident, and he took his hand away straight away. So I know people are going to be getting an uproar saying it had been the other way around, but I really disagree with that.
Yeah, that was a cheeky interview in the aftermath of that game, wasn't it? Oh, he might be in trouble for that. I certainly was.
Just going to the coaches' votes. We've got Taranto on 63, and Dusty isn't in the top 20.
Oh.
At this stage.
Right.
We're just double-checking that. And now he may be after the last two rounds, which have been in camera. So we'll have to wait and see.
And is this the leaderboard you got in front of us here with Nick Dacos leading on 99?
99, yeah.
Yeah, followed by Zach Butters, Christian Petracca, the Bont, Connor Rosey and Toby Green. Collingwood, you wanted to talk about Hodgie. I suppose this was the validation, I suppose, of everything they promised in well, really the majority of their campaign, back to perhaps where we thought they would be.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of, did they have the confidence of what they've done for the last month? And I'm not sure what you guys, I saw enough on Friday night to sort of see that they had that little bit of the pressure, the ego, the arrogance that Collingwood have played with, and arrogance in a good way, not in a bad way, that they'd played with for majority of the year, putting DeGoey back in there, how fit he looked, how powerful he looked going through the middle. Ginnivan up forward looked lively. Bobby Hill was that little bit of speed. I thought pushing Howe up forward, I like the idea to sort of see if it was going to be an X factor in the finals. Clearly it's not. He looks so much more comfortable. They look so much more comfortable with him behind the ball, especially with more out. I just was seeing if you guys see enough to bring back the confidence that you had in Collingwood 4 weeks ago?
I saw enough running power to know that if they get on a roll, if they can win the ball out of the centre, they're going to be hard to stop. I mean, the numbers don't turn around in 1 week, and they've been off, as the coach has said, for a fair period of time. They've got some selection issues, but there's no question they are a powerful unit when they get the game on their terms, and that's going to be the real challenge. But I heard David King say last night on First Crack that whoever wins the first game against Melbourne and Collingwood will go on and win the flag. And it's hard to probably disagree with that. Brisbane obviously have got some say, as does Port Adelaide. And I'm not sure anybody from the bottom four can come through and win it. But you're in a really good spot if you can flip over to that side of the draw.
We knew how good the first half was. They kicked 8 goals in the first quarter, 4 in the second quarter, and they blew the Bombers away. And we've known that the Bombers had missed a lot of players in their second half of the year, or the last 6 games haven't been ideal. Was it a concern that they weren't able to run on with it, that Essendon, with the depleted side that they had, were able to hold them up to a handful of goals in the second half? Or in your mind, was it more of they were happy, they got the win, they secured top spot, and they were just playing to not get injured in the second half of that game?
Well, are they the asterisk Essendon in this, Gerard? I mean, they lost 5 of the last. They were 5th at round 17, and then the white flag well and truly went up. I mean, they lost 3 of their last 7 by 70 points or more, and some strong comments from the captain afterwards, the coach afterwards. I mean, they checked out long before the finishing line, just ran out of gas. So is it almost difficult to assess Collingwood? Although they were better defensively, I suppose, on the night, which had been their one key measure.
Yeah, I was 60 points down at half time, and they only ended up getting the job done by a similar margin, a little bit more.
Yeah, and you can understand, Hodgie, they've put the cue in the rack to a degree, the Collingwood players, knowing the game has been won. In fact, they've done that a fair bit. But look, we're going to know more when they come up against Melbourne, who are in fantastic form, because the Swans were playing great footy. I only saw it till half time. They were playing fantastic footy, and they got better after half time, inspired by Buddy's final walk. But then to be able to drag it back and just play really hard contested footy and win by 6 was a very impressive performance in a game. And we've We've said Collingwood had nothing to play for. We said Carlton had nothing to play
the
for.
D's had nothing
Well,
to play.
Melbourne had nothing to play for, and yet they just used it as a serious hit out.
Who out of those top 4 teams? I'll put it on you now, Gerard. I haven't given you much time, but who do you have as your top 4 out of those? Who have you got rated out of those top 4? Melbourne, Brisbane, Collingwood, Port Adelaide.
I've been on Melbourne for a long period of time. Melbourne and Collingwood all season. Collingwood clearly dropped off. Melbourne haven't. So if I was to pick a premier right now, it would be the Demons.
I'm actually in the same pathway as you. I've got Melbourne, Brisbane, Collingwood, and I know a lot of Collingwood supporters out there will be sitting back going, well, hang on, we're finished on top of the ladder. What else can we do? But I think it's just how unsure you are with that side. With no Nick Dacos, Moore's going to come back in. It could be a little bit underdone. They've been chopping around with Howe in the front hand, now the back hand. And Melbourne have had a pretty smooth roll. They've had some issues up forward. Fritsch come back in on the weekend and kicks 5. They finished 4th, get a home final, been in great form. So all it is a win on Thursday night. They get a home prelim.
Yeah, it's all set up for Melbourne. They've run a really conservative campaign, but from the very first practice match, they were here to address the failings of last year, and they were so impressive again on the weekend. You can't but feel unbelievable empathy and sympathy, though, for Jake Melksham going down in such incredible circumstances, such bad luck. He's worked his absolute arse off to get himself back in that side. Was thinking about retiring, I believe, mid-season. Worked his way back in, playing the best footy of his life, and he's 3 wins away from a flag, and he does his knee.
That's the hardest thing for a person to be, as a senior person, like to go and play a selfless role. I remember when they played against the Lions and he played that selfless role on Harris Andrews, kept Harris to nothing and end up kicking the winning goal, and to see him go and do a knee late in the season, as you said, after he's fought so hard to get back in, it's an absolute disaster for him. And Maxie Gorn put up a tweet before just saying what a terrible day for Melbourne and all the supporters and a couple of his teammates, because Dom did his knee as well.
Did you see the Toby Bedford incident by any chance, Hodgie? Because there's, as many of the texts have put out, there's a fair disparity between a bump and a $3,000, which gets a week, and a $3,000 fine for hands on face.
I haven't seen the Bedford incident. I'll go back and have a look before when we come back, and I'll comment on that then.
So it's a shepherd, basically. He's trying to block for a teammate, maybe 3-4 metres off the ball, and that shepherd, that block, that bump, if you like, has been assessed as high contact. So that's why he's got himself in the eyes of the MRO, the 1 week. But obviously they're going to challenge that. They announced that straight away, Gerard, within seconds.
I think we'll need to have a good look at that in the next ad break and come out and fly the flag if indeed it's needed.
Yep, and just
with that top 4 that we're talking about, do you guys give Brisbane or Port Adelaide a chance, or it's too big of a task to try and beat Collingwood or Melbourne?
Brisbane, I think, are really. They're I mean, if Brisbane don't make the grand final, they've wasted an opportunity. So anything you get the grand final, Hodgie, as you well know. Better than anybody on this radio station right now. You're in for the hunt. So I think Brisbane can win it. I think Port Adelaide, of the top 4, would be ranked 4th, and I think that'd almost be a universal ranking. But we've got so many good young midfielders that they could turn it around as well.
Did that game against the Brisbane-Melbourne game, when Brisbane were up by 20-odd, 25 points and then tried to shut the game down, they did it with too much time left and Melbourne ran over the top of them. Would that give you confidence, the fact they played that game really well at the MCG for 3 quarters, or would it scare you a little bit, the fact that they couldn't get the job done when they needed to late in the game?
No, I think that was more a management issue. They just didn't handle that at all well. But what I've seen Brisbane do is decimate Collingwood and decimate Melbourne with extreme attack on the ball around the middle of the ground. And that's what they're going to have to do to win a grand final. And if they can do that, Hodgie, they can win this flag. There's only one formula for them. It's that midfield manic attack on the ball that, it knocked Petrarca and Oliver off their game. It knocked Pendlebury and the like off their game. Both of them, by the way, were at the up at the Gabba, but that's the sort of heat that they need to bring to win the flag.
And I think if you the 2 games that Brisbane played against Melbourne, both times they tried to slow the game down. Obviously, the lights was a weird issue and they had to go in for 30 minutes. But then when they came back out, they were 40, 45 points up. Brisbane tried to play safe. Melbourne took the game on. They got back within 10 points with a couple of minutes to go. And then the other one. So they definitely got the keys there. They just got to make sure they can do it for the whole 4 quarters and not shut it down too early.
A little bit more feedback coming for the All-Australian squad. And I think this one's real. Chera will be way ahead of Cripps in Carlton's best and fairest. I thought Chera was really stiff not to make the All-Australian side, given that he was up until he was injured, he was Carlton's best.
Yep, and a few texts coming in on that note as well that Adam Chera might have been unlucky. There is a one-eyed tiger here who agrees with Kane that Taranto gets a lot of the ball but just hacks it. Not an All-Australian year, says Kieran up in Canberra. And a bit of love for Brian Myers. How could the leading goal assist player easily in the competition not get in? They've got it wrong, says Darren in Gisborne.
Well, you got to compare goal assists with goal assists and goals. I mean, it's just you just can't get in on one category.
He was so good at setting up teammates, but he did have a lot of opportunities as well to kick goals. And as a half forward to make the All-Australian team, you need more than 7 goals for the entire season. He was, as I said, he was so good at setting up teammates, but you also need to finish some of the work off yourself. And if you look at a few of the other forwards in there, you got Langford in there who's kicked 50-odd goals. You got Charlie Cameron as well, Toby Green. There is a lot of small forwards that have been able to do both.
Is Andrews a certainty to make the team?
Certainly. Early on, he didn't have as the start that you'd probably wanted, but he's been so consistent towards the back end. With Taylor not being in, there's probably more Sicily.
I got more Sicily and Andrews as the only three now that really stand out. With Taylor not making the squad. Weitering's another one, of course.
We had the chat with Kane the other day about.
Yep.
But
First half of the season was pretty slow.
Yep. Anyone who out of Weitering or Andrews that misses out will be unlucky, but there's only so many spots you can fill because I think Sicily and Moore are both locks from that position.
John's up in Hodge's part of the world here, Gerard. How is Oscar McInerney not in the squad ahead of Rowan Marshall? Completely ran him into the ground on the weekend so much that when the game was on the line at the end, that Rowan Marshall had nothing left in the tank and sat himself on the bench for the last 5 minutes of the game. John, I'm not sure if that was a bit of precautionary measurement from the Saints to protect their players out of the first final, but what are the big O then, Hodgie?
The Big O's had a really consistent year. I guess when he's come face-to-face with a lot of the other key ruckmen, he's probably fallen a little bit short. Maxi Gawn got a hold of him at the MCG. But if you wanted me to pick between either Luke Jackson or Oscar McInerney, I'd probably go Oscar. But as Gerard said, Gerard's watched a lot more of the Fremantle games than what I have, so I'd have to back his word on that one.
I don't think anyone slept on Nick Larkey's season, but great to see him in the squad of 44. He had to be. He'd probably be in the squad of 22. But he's kicked 71 goals, I think it is. In a season where his team has obviously finished down near the foot of the table, it's been something extraordinary from Nick Larkey. And as Josh Jenkins pointed out on Drive, he didn't get to play against North Melbourne twice either.
That's a good point, Hodgie.
Well, if you look at Curnow and Walker, both played West Coast twice, kicked 19 against them and had good days on against North Melbourne as well. But who would you have in? Sammy, I'll put it to you. Charlie Curnow, Taylor Walker or Nick Larkey? Well, you have two key forwards normally, don't you, in a side?
Well, I'm picking 3. And I'm leaving one.
Do that.
No, well, you can. And you put one on the bench. Absolutely, you can. I'm starting with 2, and I'm running one off the bench.
Well, let's just, for the sake of the argument, pick 2 out of 3.
Oh, that's disappointing. I'll take the splinters out then. I think I'm going the Coleman medal leader, have to, in this instance. And I think I'm going the Suva.
Yeah, I did the numbers on Suva today compared to Tex. Larkey kicks 3.1 goals a game. Tex kicks 3.5. Assists, Larkey 0.3. Tex 0.7, score involvements, Larkey 5.5, Tex 7.9.
And the only reason I'm going Suva is I'm giving him massive kudos for the fact he's doing it in a side that has been poor, that has been unbelievably poor at times. So I'm giving him a leg up for that, Hodgie, but I'm not sure if the All-Australian selectors take that into account or not.
This is why we need Kane here. Once again, disappointing.
Yeah, it depends on how many they put in.
Did you have Tex, did you, in Curnow, Gerard?
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
We'll see what happens there. Hey, what did you make of Lance Franklin's farewell? There's a few farewells, obviously, at the weekend. Hodgie, I know you played a lot of footy with Lance. Farewelled at halftime, and for a while, I guess we wondered if this was ever going to happen. Great to have the family involved, his child with him as well. He was emotional, which surprised me somewhat.
Yes and no. I think Buddy is a very emotional person. I guess because people don't see him as much as what they'd want to or see him in the public eye as much, he doesn't show off that. He shows as a competitive beast on the football field, but he's someone who loves football. He's wanted to play football since he was a little kid, and he was able to do it for 19 years. So I think he did get emotional because he's going to miss football in general, but also for the Sydney supporters. When he teared up in front of the the members there at the SCG, you could sort of see it really did get to him because he had so many great memories up there. He would have remembered we all remembered when they all stormed the ground for his 1,000th goal last year. So it was great to see the emotional side of the big fella and how much football really does mean for him. And it was great to see him get back there because, yes, it was good for everyone to cheer him off, but it was also good for the Sydney faithful when he went up there. They looked after him so much. They supported him so much. So it was good to see he go back and send it off and say thank you for everything they had done for him.
It's been an extraordinary journey. Footy's going to be much lesser for his retirement. I reckon he's the greatest rock star the game's ever seen, and I understand there's been the likes of Modra and Gary Ablett Sr., but he's played in this era where social media and the media in general has exploded, and he's been at the forefront of the explosion.
And I think when you say the rock star, I spoke to Gerard Healy a few weeks ago and said how he actually is a rock star because rock stars are people that you look up to, you love watching, but you very rarely get to see what they're like personally because he's such a private person and kids will see him on the footy field or they'll see him on the TV or see him on the posters, but very rarely get that chance to go and meet him like they would with a lot of other AFL stars because he does want to stay private. So that's where if he's as big, he's as close to a rock star as anyone else in the game, in my time anyway. So
just on that, Hodgie, what happens now? Does he disappear, never to be seen or heard from again? I mean, what sort of retiree, if I can phrase it, is he going to be?
He'll be sitting up on the Gold Coast. I can tell you that is. I've got a few messages. They've spotted Buddy out having some long lunches in his retirement days early. But I wouldn't be surprised. And I don't know this. I've not. But he loves football that much, and he's got a great knowledge of the game. That if I was Gold Coast or Brisbane, getting in his ear to sort of do some ambassador work for him, get down and teach. Look, Gold Coast have got some really good young forwards. It wouldn't hurt having a bloke who lives 20 minutes from their ground to go up there and sit with them 1 day a week or 2 days a week, as well as try and pump up and get the Gold Coast Suns as big as the other sporting teams in Brisbane up here, because he's definitely got as you said, he's got the reach to do it. He's got the knowledge to help the young guys and be a great asset for the Suns if they can get him there.
That Melbourne double ACL blow, just recapping that if you missed it, Jake Melksham, Luke Dunstan out for 12 months, but shattering blow for both, but particularly for Jake Melksham, guys, who we discussed earlier. Missed out in 2021, had fought back to not only get back in the team, but be a critically important member of it, and you just know he had a big role to play in September. He'd become known as the diffuser.
Yes, the intercepting defenders would be breathing a little bit more easily, albeit saddened by what has happened to one of their colleagues.
Yep, and as we told you earlier here on SEN Today, scans have cleared Carlton winger Blake Acres of any fracture to the collarbone, the shoulder region, after he was subbed out really quickly, wasn't he, against GWS last night. Understandably sore, but he said to be every chance to feature in Carlton's elimination final against Sydney at the MCG.
Yeah, I thought it was an AC sprain, and it's injectable. He'll be playing.
Yeah, so what grading, I'm testing here, but what grading do you get up to with the ACs before you have to have an operation?
Well, when the ligament snaps.
So that's typically a 3?
A 3.
So this could be a 1 or a 2.
1 or 2.
Yeah.
But
Be sore for a while then.
It'll be sore, yeah. I mean, you can inject them and take away the pain, but you often see them riding up. Hodgie, have you ever had a bad AC sprain?
A long time ago, 2009.
And has it come back down, or is your clavicle still riding up above?
Still all good. But I didn't have any long-term damage from it.
Okay. Because sometimes they just ride up above like a knuckle up.
And they're in there. You can give them a bit of
definitely
juice.
Juice them up and away you go.
Is that right? There you go. St
You
Kilda.
hate the pain the next day.
Yeah, that's
right.
it.
Trying to lift put your shirt on the next day is no good.
Now, Hodgie, did you have a look at the now what's going to be the most famous bump this week of Toby Bedford?
Well, it was the most limited views of a bump that I've ever seen. It's taken about a step before he's made the bump, so you can't really make a call.
It's more a shepherd though than a bump.
It looked like he was within a couple of metres, but as I said, the vision that the AFL have put out has been he's 2 steps and then the bump's on. So you would like to see a little bit more of a lead up before you make a comment on it.
I would have thought
there's no doubt they're going to argue.
Yeah, I would have thought he's a certainty to get off.
Yeah. So Jacob Weitering does get off, but the footnote to that, of course, that Toby Bedford has been hit with a 1-match ban. It was rough conduct in the end for a blocker, or as you say, a shepherd on Zach Fisher. So was assessed as careless, was assessed medium impact. Medium impact is interesting given Zach Fisher got up and played on. High contact, which equates to the 1-match ban. And
Doesn't look high.
as we said earlier. Well, it's hard with Hodgie. It's a long way away. We need some other angles. But
it doesn't look like he's sort of risen above and got him in the head. It looks like it's shoulder to shoulder.
And there is care. I don't know how much this is worth, but there is if you watch the vision on, there is immediate care shown by Toby Beckford, who goes over to check on Zach Fisher. So take from that it was obviously incidental contact or accidental contact, if you like. So GWS will challenge that one. That one's going to the tribunal this week. St Kilda not getting a final at Marvel Stadium. I'm not sure what you two gentlemen thought of this.
MCG's a home of football.
MCG's the home of finals. Laura Cade told us that moments ago. I'll tell you what the Executive General Manager of Football also told us was that basically, given there are 3 finals in Melbourne, not 4, there's a contract issue with the G, and it sounds as though the game just had to be played at the G.
So what happened there if Richmond snuck in and got into the 8 and had to play St Kilda at the MCG? I thought the whole reason of playing so hard throughout the home and away season was to get us finished as high up in the ladder as you can to get a home final.
Unless there's a contract in place that says you can stuff that, we're going to play where it suits us.
It's how unfair.
It's the home of the finals.
I understand that, but the build-up for every team is to try and get enough wins to get a home final. So St Kilda get a home final, but it's not at their home.
No, for Melbourne sides, it's a home state final. For anywhere else, it's a home state and home grand final. It is a bit bizarre, but it's part and parcel of a contract between the state government, the MCC, and obviously the AFL.
Why couldn't they have just swapped it round and did the Collingwood-Brisbane game there and put the first final over here for St Kilda?
Well, I think the Saints, I think it's crazy just from an atmosphere perspective. I don't know how many. Will more than 50,000 people turn up?
Oh, they're really confident more than 55.
No, they're not.
They've
got a contract.
They have to say that. I mean,
they're saying AFL members can come, MCC members can come. But, geez, I go back to, it's a long time ago, but 2013, Geelong hosted Fremantle at GMHBA Stadium, wherever it was known at the time. Yeah. So the precedent is there. Now, it was said that at that time there might have been a few things happening in the background with government funding and elections and stadia and all those sort of things that we're not always privy to, a bit of politics coming into it. But I just feel sorry for St Kilda, who play their best football at Marvel. GWS play it well, mind you, as well. But, geez, are we overthinking it, Hodgie? Surely you just pack it out. But then again, if people miss out, then that's not a good result either.
Just reward the team that finishes higher on the ladder at their home game. That's why they call it a home final. Or a home state final.
Henry's in Hyde. He wanted to have a chat to us about this very topic. G'day, Henry.
G'day, boys. How are we?
What do you make of it? You think it's good that the Saints are at the G?
I love it, boys. I've got my MCG. I'm a big Saints fan. Look, I've only had to travel to the MCG twice this year. So, look, I don't want to go to Marvel. I think, the grand final is played at the G. So I think the more experience our young fellas can get there, it's probably the better for us.
There you go. Okay. And you won't hear St Kilda complaining either, by the way, Hodgie, because the old Ross Lyon mantra, we're an anywhere team, an anytime team, you don't want the negative thoughts coming through your playing group.
Yeah, we'll wait and see what happens after the result. If the result doesn't go their way, let's see what comes out.
But from an AFL perspective, Hodgie, they're there for the betterment of the game, and the betterment of the game is the best atmosphere you can. So let's just hope everybody who barracks for the Saints turns up and we've got 65 or 70,000 people there, because you're going to get a great atmosphere at the Marvel Stadium, but sadly there won't be too many orange jumpers in the crowd.
But with that as well, the best atmosphere for me is a packed-out
Marvel Stadium.
Marvel Stadium.
Yeah.
I was going to say Docklands. Packed out, rather than a 65,000 into 100,000 seated MCG. That's
you don't have to say Docklands. You're not on the ABC.
That's what I was trying to think what it was, Marvel.
Yeah, and it's their home ground. I mean, let's not overthink it. It's their home ground.